Hello and welcome to another video, and in this one we're going to be looking at notes. Now the first thing that we want to point out here is that notes are primarily a tool for the player and not for the DM. If we have a look at the wiki article about notes under the campaign management section, you'll see here that this says that notes are intended primarily for player use within the game. Uh, the player can make notes on the campaign, characters, etc., and the data is presented within the campaign database only. Notes cannot be categorized into groups. They're not designed to be used for GM system, character creation, campaign data, etc., as they cannot be exported into a module for reuse in another campaign. Use story entries for this type of data. So the To emphasize this, the notes are in the player section of the index here. And if we have a look at the export window, we can see that there is no tick box here to export notes. So this is the first and probably the most important thing to take away from this video, is that notes are not a DM tool per se. They are not something which you can use and create and use across multiple campaigns. That's not their intended use. The intention here is that notes are used by players to keep whatever notes that they want on the campaign that you as GM are running. If, as a GM, you want to create background information on your campaign, then create them as story entries. Create a group and then place your stories in here with different whatever you want, different titles. We've got the overview, geography, peoples, whatever you want. Or you can also go into the builder and create a reference manual here and do the same sort of thing. The beauty of the reference manual being that you can also add in graphics and maps and all sorts of different things that you want to do. So as a GM, if you're a GM and you are wanting to take notes, or you want to keep notes on your campaign, then it's highly recommended you do so as either a reference or story. Don't use notes for something that you want to use in another campaign. So if we have a look at the player's view now, um, just to emphasize the point, if we bring up story entries for players, you can see there's no green add item button down at the bottom here. It's the same for tables, vehicles, whatever you go to, you will not see a green plus at the bottom. However, if we open notes, then we do see we've got a green add item button, which means that the players can create notes. So this is further emphasizes the fact that notes are really a player tool rather than a DM one. Now to create a note, all we need to do is just click here and add item. You can also right click and create an item from here. Once you've opened it up, you see this screen here. We've got a title as normal, and we also have the owner designated here, the person who created this note. Now, this is me, of course, because I've just joined my own game. But if you had several players, then whatever player created the note would be the owner of the note. And that is important because that is the person who can edit that note or add something to that note. Whoever created the note is the only person who is now going to be able to edit the note, apart from the DM, of course, but they're the only player who's going to be able to edit this note. And this note as well is only viewable by the player and the DM. If you wanted the other players to be able to view this note, then you can make the note public by ticking this box here. And you'll see that a little P pops up to show that this note has been shared or has been made public by this particular player. Now the DM can always, as I say, see notes. So if we go back to the DM view, we can see that the DM can see this note, and he would see a list of notes here with all the players, whoever had created these particular notes. So back to the player then, and we can give it a title, whatever we want. And then we can just type a text in here uh, and whatever we want to do. And exactly the same kind of text formatting is available in Notes as in Stories. So you can have lists, you can have tables, you can bold text, you can italicize text, you can have headings, etc. So if our DM here was running the Lost Mine of Fandelver, for example, and maybe he placed this particular text box into the chat, then the player could come along. Maybe the player wants to retain this information so that it doesn't disappear. They can right click over this, they can copy the text there, then they can come in here, go to clipboard and paste the text in, or just Control V as usual, and the text will then be pasted into our note. If the DM was then going to maybe share this image with the players, uh, and the player wanted to retain this image or be able to grab this image or find this image again quickly, they can drag and drop that into the notes as well. So anything you can do with a story entry, or anything a DM can do with a story entry, the players can do with a notes entry. And that obviously includes as well the player can drag this note here and put it into the quick bar so that they can quickly get back to that particular note. Now, in a similar fashion, although we're saying that the notes are primarily for the player, that's not to say that the DM can't use notes. They can. It's just what we're saying is don't use notes for things that you want to transport over into another campaign. But the DM is perfectly free to create their own note. And they can fill that in with whatever text that they want. So let's supposing that the DM wanted to keep a note of this uh, part of the wiki, then they can do so in the same way just by copy pasting the text. I've just copy pasted that direct from the wiki article just straight into here. And again, the DM note is not, well, the DM note doesn't show an owner because the owner is the DM. And the DM also has the possibility of making this note public. And if they do so, then obviously it'll be visible to all of the players, but the players won't see the DM notes unless this is ticked. So if we go over to the player's view again, we can see that the player is still just seeing my notes. It's not, the player's not seeing these DM notes here, but if I was to tick that box, then the player is now able to view that note. Incidentally, the players can also delete any of the notes that they have made themselves. They won't be able to delete somebody else's note, and you can see here that we can't delete the DM note, but we can delete the note that we created. So the big takeaway here is that notes are really a player tool. They're not really for the DM, especially they're not for the DM making notes that they want to carry on to other campaigns. Now, if you have made a note as a DM that you do want to create or you do want to carry out into another campaign and therefore you want to make it exportable, then the easiest way to do this is to open up your story list and your notes list, and then just simply drag the note that you want to make a copy of into the story window, and this will create a story entry with exactly the same text as you had, and it'll keep all the formatting and all that kind of thing. And since it's now in a story, you will now be able to export this into another campaign should you wish to do so. So I think that's it. The important thing here to take away, can't emphasize this enough because so many DMs seem to make this mistake, is that notes should not be used for keeping things that you want to export or things that you want to use across multiple campaigns. You should use stories or reference manual entries for that kind of thing. You shouldn't use notes because the notes cannot be exported to a module. So it's a player tool, not a DM tool. Okay, I think that's the point driven home, hopefully, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers for now.